Okay, so welcome to tonight's webinar. As you can see there, tonight we're covering supporting your new team members. This is one of a series of 8 webinars that I run. I call it the Kleeneze Circle of Success. You can see there we're on number 5, and they're all recorded. So for people like Phil, for example, and Tina, I'm guessing, who have just started, then numbers 1 and 2, so that the early ones are all about getting started in the first few weeks. Because they're all recorded, you can go back and watch those. You don't have to wait kind of 4 or 5 weeks till we get to that point. And at the end of the webinar tonight, I'll explain where all the recordings are so you can go and find them. And this one is being recorded as we speak, so if there's anything that I go over that you just want to go back over again, or if you don't catch anything or anything like that, then again that'll all be recorded, and I'll explain at the end where they all are. So as you can see, the first 2 or 3 are really just about the retail side, getting started, your first few weeks, and building that customer base. Last week we talked about getting started on team building, and tonight I'm going to talk about supporting your new team members. So for those of you who are just getting into team building or are thinking about whether or not you'd like to, then hopefully this will be useful to you. Then the next 3 weeks, the next 3 webinars, I'll try and do one a week. Sometimes I might miss a week if I've got some other commitment, but the next 3 weeks are all about kind of the personal development side. So growing yourself, setting your goals and your attitude, and how important all of that is. But tonight it's all about new team members, so we're going to be covering, understanding a bit about the numbers when you're team building, and the importance of the first 7 days when somebody joins. Thinking about early problems. We all have the odd problem when we first start off, and if you can help somebody and anticipate those, that will really help and support them well. Helping them keep track, getting them to their first meeting, where the meetings are so important. And something that I recommend, it's not for everybody, but I have checklists for everything. Checklist for cleaning my teeth, I think. And so I'm a keen one to have a list of things that I do whenever a new member joins. And if you find that you're recruiting a lot of new people, and if you're keen to build a team and you are doing that, then it's useful to have a list of things that you do with new team members. And I'll go through that with you a little bit. So if you followed the instructions last week and you did a bit of advertising and you sent some information to a team member, and the team member says, oh yeah, I'd like to do that, and they join, this is where it gets really exciting now. But it's also where the hard work begins. You will find that working with other people can be frustrating at times. You've got your own goals, your own work ethics, your own attitudes, and not everybody will be the same as you. So sometimes you'll have to deal with some frustration, and your success in Kleeneze will be in direct proportion to the amount of frustration you can deal with. But the important thing to remember is you only need 5 serious people to build a huge business. Sometimes you hear about people like Bob Webb, for example, who've probably got thousands of people in his downline, and you think, oh crikey, it must have taken him years and years and years to recruit all those people. And it did take a while, but the important thing to realize is he didn't recruit all those people. If you recruit somebody and they're serious and they start to recruit 1 or 2 people, and then they find 1 or 2 serious people and they start to do it, then as you can see, if you get 5 serious people who are all recruiting other serious people as well, your business can grow huge. So don't think you need to recruit thousands of people. But when you do recruit somebody, the aftercare and support that you give them is the biggest impact that you can have on the success of your new team member. Now I say that because, to be honest, the biggest impact on their success is themselves. And so that's why the last 3 webinars that I run are all about how you can think about being more successful. What changes yourself? How can you be successful when maybe other people are not successful? But as a team leader, the biggest impact you can have on them is the care and support once they've joined the business. But it's also important to understand that many distributors will leave. It's not right for everybody. I remember when I first joined Kleeneze, after being in for a few months, I was kind of so excited by it. My retail was going quite well. I started to recruit a few people, and I just couldn't quite understand why people were leaving the business. And I thought I was doing something wrong. I thought, okay, let's try and understand what I did. Let's see what, perhaps I upset them a bit. Perhaps I didn't give them the right level of support. But short of driving round to every team member's house, picking up their catalogues, delivering their catalogues for them, delivering their goods to their customers, and building their team for them, you can't do everything for them. And some people, it's just not quite at the right time for them. So if they leave, as long as you've asked yourself, did you do everything you could do to support them, then that's all you can do. And you just have to understand that people will leave. But one of the first things that you need to do is to keep in touch with them. A little phrase there, constant communication keeps people inspired. And usually it's up to you to keep contacting your new team members. They may feel that they don't want to bother you, or you're probably really busy, or you've got team members to worry about as well as your own customers, so they don't want to sort of worry you about their little troubles. So it's really, really important that you keep calling them and keep reiterating that it's fine for them to contact you in any way. Excuse me. And what you'll find is the people in your team who are serious, the leaders amongst them, will contact you. They understand that you're there to help them, and so they will ask for your help, which is great. If you get a team member who rings you up to let you know they've had a good pickup, or they've had a bad pickup, or they've had a really happy customer, or they've had an upset customer, it doesn't matter what they're calling you about. If they're calling you about it regularly, then you can help them, which is fantastic. So, quick question then. I know some of you will have been on this before and will probably know my views on this, but what would you guess? How many times should you speak to or call a new distributor during their first week? Amanda and Andrew think every day. Anybody else got any views, any thoughts? A couple of times, Sophie. Depends, Sean says depends. Yeah, daily if needed. Yeah. Good. A variety there. A few people saying every day. My view is you should try to contact them every day. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you can contact them. If they're doing this around a part-time job and they've got sort of children to sort out when they get home and so on, it might be that it's just not practical to speak to them every day. However, what you're trying to do at this stage, especially at the beginning, is kind of just get to know them, building a little bit of rapport, showing them that you care, answering any questions that they might have, and just showing them that you're there for them. If you're ringing them regularly, then they'll kind of get to understand that it's okay to talk whenever you need to talk. And they don't have to sort of think, oh, well, I can only call them up on a Friday when they're getting towards the end of the week. They want to know that they can call you any time. And by you calling them frequently and building up that little bit of rapport and friendship and understanding their situation and helping them through their initial days, then it shows them that you're there for them if they need to contact you. So what would you say to somebody if you're ringing them up every single day? Crikey, what on earth do you say? What I do is I've got a little list here of the sorts of things that I say, and you don't have to do exactly this. It's just really to give you a bit of an idea. So, for example, the day after they've registered, I always try and give them a call just to let them know I've just sent you a welcome letter with a few bits and bobs in there to help you get started. The catalogue should arrive, whatever day, tomorrow, hopefully, if they've joined up during the week. Obviously, if it's over a weekend, there's the extra days there to think about. And just ask if they've got any questions at that point. Normally they don't. It's early days for them, but obviously if they've started to do some Facebook selling straight away, then they may well have questions that you can help them with. But if they're mainly going to do the catalogue side and they're wanting to wait until the catalogues arrive before they kind of get out and do anything, then they may not have any questions at that point. The next day, I go through what I call a getting started checklist. This is just a little checklist in the welcome letter that I sent them. So you can see there on day one, I say, I've sent you an information pack. It's actually a welcome letter, really. And in there, there's just a list of things that I go through with them. And these are things like understanding why they've joined the business, what it is they're wanting out of it, how much they're looking to earn, what their initial goals are, but then also understanding how much time they've got to commit to the business. If you get somebody who says, "Oh, crikey, I've just lost my job and I'm really worried about my rent. I need kind of at least £500 a month to get started, really," and then they say they've only got a couple of hours on a Saturday morning, then you really kind of need to understand that as soon as possible, because what they're expecting with what they're willing to commit is not realistic. So the sooner you understand that, the better. In fact, if it was something like that, you would hopefully kind of understand that before they'd even signed up. But you know what I mean. Sometimes, depending on the conversations and so on. But this just allows you to get them thinking about what they're wanting to achieve, how many hours that would take them to do it, and whether what they're hoping is realistic with the time that they can spend. So day 3, I might then ring up and just check that everything's arrived okay. If I always order a bid starter kit for a new starter, and obviously the catalogue should hopefully arrive by then. So with a bit of luck, they've got everything they need to get started with their catalogue. So I just sort of say, have you got any questions after you've opened the boxes? Have you got any ideas of when you're planning to put your catalogues out, and where you're planning to go, and so on. So again, just kind of getting an understanding of what they're planning to do, and how many hours they're kind of ready to put into it. Because if kind of everything's arrived, but they're saying, "Oh well, no, I think I've got a few days when I've got to do this yet, and then we're away for the weekend, so it'll probably be the middle of next week before I put my catalogues out," then at least you kind of understand what their timescales are. Day 4 would normally just be a how's it going. They've got everything. Maybe they're just preparing all their catalogues ready to go out, or maybe they've delivered some catalogues, or maybe they've got some orders from Facebook. Whatever it is that they're doing, it's really important to kind of recognize their hard work, because if this is new to them, then it can be quite scary. So it's important just to say well done, even if all they've done is got 50 catalogues ready to be delivered, or they've kind of they've started their own Facebook group and they've joined 10 local groups. That they've made a start, they've taken some action, which is the important thing. Day 5 might simply be any questions, depending obviously on what actions they're taking. If they've got any questions, if they put their first catalogues out, did anything happen? Was there anything they were unsure about? So just a kind of a general quick chat with them then. Now day 6, by the end of the first week, depending on how quickly they got things going and everything, they may have done their first pickup. They may want some help putting an order in. It's important to talk about obviously free delivery and qualifying for free catalogues. People will, if they don't understand how it all works, they do their first pickup, maybe they get £40 or £50 worth of orders, and they want to put it in straight away. And you need to just sort of say, it might be worth waiting until you've got 150, because then you'll qualify for the free catalogues as well as the free delivery. So just making sure that you kind of make sure they don't fall foul of anything. I've had customers who kind of new starters who kind of work out themselves how to put an order in, and they've just done a pickup of a few catalogues on their street. They've got 3 or 4 little orders and they put it in, and it's quite disheartening if they sort of think, "Oh, this is great, I've got 30 quid's worth of orders." They've maybe made £5 or £6 commission from it, and then they have to pay a £5.99 delivery charge. So making sure that they're aware of that as soon as possible, and it can really help. And then if they do put an order in, checking that it arrived okay, that they managed to unpack everything, that everything was in there. Sometimes obviously things might be out of stock when they order them, but also things go out of stock after it's been ordered but before it's packed. So sometimes an item may not arrive in the order that they're expecting. So you can kind of just help to explain to them how that happens and what to do about that. So that's a kind of typical first week, really. And obviously the first 2 or 3 days are pretty much the same for everybody. But then after that, it all depends on how quickly they're getting up to speed and how many hours they're putting in. So the next thing, and I've kind of talked a little bit about it there, is just anticipating and preparing people and eliminating common early errors, really. So things like, you need a photo ID. When you complete your registration, there's an option on the final screen to upload a photo at that point. And if they've done that, then absolutely fine, this isn't a problem. But if they don't, within the first 28 days, you're supposed to email or post a photo for your ID card. If you don't do that, your account goes on, can't remember if it's stop or hold now, and it just means that you won't be able to place an order until you've then sent that photo in, and that can take a day or so for them to acknowledge that they've received it. So if if it's coming towards the end of a period and you're hoping to get an order in, and then you can't because you've got to send your photo off, that can be frustrating for a new starter. So just make sure that photos are sent in, and that's obviously not an issue. Just preparing new team members not against failure, but against problems. It will rain in this country. You will get wet. And there's no two ways about it. You will get some good pickups, and you will get some disappointing pickups. It happens. They're not all exactly the same. So it's important to understand that. And you will get some grumpy so-and-sos answering the door saying, "Oh, I don't want your silly catalogue here. Take it away," or "I've thrown it away. I don't darken my doorstep again." Jim Rohn's got a great phrase on this. He says, "There's only about half a dozen really grumpy old people around the world. Now they travel around quite a lot, but if you bump into one or two of them, then there's only 4 or 5 left. You can deal with that." Make sure that your team members have got the names and numbers of your upline. So obviously they know you, and they've hopefully got all your contact details. But if you're not available, if you can introduce them to your sponsor or their sponsor, somebody who's got some experience and been successful in the business, then it'd be great to introduce them to that and make them feel that it's okay to call this person, whoever it might be, if you're not available. Because that way they start to get to understand the way the network works, and the fact that we support everybody in your downline, not just the people that you've introduced personally. Make sure they've got dates in their diary for your next local meetings. Obviously you guys are all on the webinar tonight, so letting your new team members know about the webinars is a great thing to do. Just keep everybody informed. The more you can expose them to education, information and inspiration is the phrase I like to use. The more information they've got and the more inspiration you can give them, the more successful they will be. And local open evenings are a great way to do that as well. Explain a bit about building a customer base. The fact that at the beginning, we all start off exactly the same. We've got no customers, a bunch of catalogues, hopefully some enthusiasm and a hope that we're going to build a successful business. But at the beginning, you need to kind of build your customer base up by delivering lots and lots of catalogues or promoting lots and lots of products through your different Facebook groups and that, until you've got that loyal base of customers, at which point it becomes a lot more efficient. And talk to them regularly. As I said earlier, when their kit first arrives, after they've done their first drop, after their first pickup and so on, helping them place that first order. That will really, by talking to them regularly, it will help to anticipate any errors that might occur. Now, what other errors can happen? One of the common ones is if they've started on the installments plan, so they've gone for the full starter kit with 250 catalogues, but they're spreading the cost over 4 months, then make sure they know the dates of when the installments are due, because the company takes the payment from that card, whichever card they use to pay their £25 deposit, automatically on the dates of the installments. And if it can't take it, if there isn't sufficient funds in the account that the card is linked with, then their account immediately goes on hold, and they need to pay that off pretty quickly, within something like 2 or 3 days. Otherwise, if they don't, and their account is on hold for longer than 2 or 3 days, they have to pay the full 100 and whatever's outstanding, £135, not just the £45 for that instalment. So it's really, really important that people understand that. As I've said there, don't miss one. Otherwise your account goes on hold, and yeah, I've said it just there. I think you've got a couple of days leeway on it, so if you do pay off what you owe within a day or two, then you'll be okay. But if you leave it for a week and then think, oh, that's all right, I'll pay it off now and I'm ready to put my next order in, you might find you have to pay 135 instead of the 45. Okay, keeping track of what your new team member is aiming for and their activities to help them earn it. So firstly, it's really important to understand how much they want to earn. Are they looking for £50 a week? Are they looking for £1,000 a month? And is that realistic, as I've said, with the amount of time they're able to put into it? But once you've got an idea for it, if they're looking for £50 a week and they've got enough time to put, say, 250 catalogues out, then that's realistic. And 250 catalogues is probably, 8, 10, 12 hours a week. So as long as they understand what they need to do, and they've got the time, and they can understand that they need to commit the time to do it, then that's fine. And you can help them keep track of that. If they've said they're going to put 250 catalogues out and they don't, then they need to understand that they need to try and catch up with that if they want to earn what they've said they wanted to earn. And explain about the bonus system as well. I think obviously the 30-day challenge is really good especially if you're looking to build up a good set of catalogues. All the free catalogues you get in the first 30 days is brilliant. And obviously if you can get 500 bonus points or £600 worth in their first 30 days, then you get an extra 50 catalogues as well. And explaining about the 10% bonus, so once they get to just under £800 worth of orders in a period, then they get an extra bonus that will be worth between £25 and £50 to them. So making sure they're aware of all of these things and keeping track as they place orders as we get towards the end of their 30 days or the end of a period. They won't really understand, well, most new starters don't really understand the dates of the periods and so on. So you need to help them with that, especially at the beginning. There you go, I just said all that. 30-day challenge, their 10% bonus. Don't think we have a 90-day challenge anymore. I need to update that. Meetings and trainings. Always, always, always go to your local meetings and trainings. Obviously, you guys are all on the webinar anyway, so thank you all for supporting me with that. But the importance of going there yourself and taking your team members there is just to show the importance of it. I'm a great believer in the phrase, be the leader you seek. Sometimes when you're just getting into being a team leader, you sort of think, oh, I wish we did this, or I wish our team leader did that. And sometimes the best thing to do is for you to take the initiative and organise it. So if there's a group of you going to a local meeting, then organise to share the travelling, so you don't all have to drive 4 cars all along the same road. You can do some car sharing or whatever. I talked at the beginning about having a checklist. Now I'm not going to go through all of this, but I think it's really helpful if you start to recruit people. Then speak to your sponsor about what do they do whenever a new starter joins, and hopefully you'll have seen that yourself, because when you joined, your sponsor should have helped you get started. So sent you some information and given you the right contact details for them and their upline, all those things that I've talked about. They should be doing it for you, and so you need to think about doing it for them. So I'm not going to go through all that list there. If anyone kind of wants to pause the recording and go back to this, if you've got any particular questions on any of that, then I'm quite happy to go through that with you. But I think the point I'm trying to make there is it's useful to have a list of things, and your list will get better and more complete as you kind of do it more and more, as you kind of get more experienced as a team leader. So your PSG. PSG is your personal sales group. So it's basically everybody who you've recruited frontline to yourself, plus anybody in your downline who have recruited people, excluding people who have got to gold. That kind of makes sense. I'm not going to try and describe it in too much detail. If you want to clarify what your personal sales group is, speak to your sponsor. I'm sure they can explain it to you. But it's important to keep track of your PSG to see if your business is growing, and also especially for new team members to watch out for if they're approaching hitting a bonus. So every day, at least every couple of days, you should be looking at your personal sales group, see who's been putting orders in, and if they're approaching a 10% bonus or a 13% bonus, and it's getting towards the end of the third week or the fourth week, then you need to let them know what they need to do to achieve that bonus. And for you, if you're looking to grow your business, you should be just monitoring how many active distributors have you got, how many new distributors have you signed in, how many serious distributors have you got, And you'll kind of know yourself what a serious distributor looks like. He's someone who's contacts you, who's always curious, wants to know about how to grow the business, starts talking about recruiting their first team members and so on. And the total sales, your bulk orders, it's useful for you to know that, because obviously as you're growing your business and your PSG, you want to know what bonus levels you're going for. And if you monitor this each month, what you're aiming to achieve is, this is another Jim Rohn phrase, measurable improvement in reasonable time. If you can measure something, you can work on it and you can improve it. If you've got no idea how big your PSG is and how many people you've got in it and how much you're achieving in sales, and just once every 4 weeks some money seems to appear in your bank account, then you're kind of running a quite an unorganized business, if you like, and you need to keep track of things so you can see where you need to focus your efforts if there are things not quite going right. So, quick question for everybody then. How many serious people do you want in your team? I mentioned this very briefly earlier. Can you remember what I said? Oh yeah, Sean's on the ball. Sean said 5. Peter and Myrna 5. Pete 5. So, oh gosh, you guys are all so good. 5 plus. Amanda, like a bit of ambition. That's very good. Hi, Sue from Chiddock. Yep, 5. Yeah, we talk about having 5 serious people. If you can get 5 people who all get to the gold level, then you'll be senior executive, SED, and then we're talking about serious residual income at that point. So 5 serious people can build you a huge business. I mentioned at the beginning about calling a new starter. How often should you call a new starter? Sophie said every day. Thank you, Sophie. Glad to see you're on the ball. Oh, look at you guys every day. You're all on the ball. Gosh, I think you've been cheating. You've been watching this before. Okay, everyone's got the right answer there. Every day, at least in their first week. And then obviously after that, you'll start to get a feel for how much support they want. People like to chat regularly, that's great, but if they just want to be left to get on with it, then that's okay. But don't just leave them at that point, but you might not need to call them every single day. Okay, so coming towards the end now, just covering what we talked about, understanding a bit about the numbers. As I said, it's really important to recognize that people will join the business and people will leave the business. And as long as you can say that you've done everything you can to support them, then that's fine. You're never going to keep everybody who joins. And the first 7 days is so important in just building that rapport with them. Understanding what early problems can occur is really good, because then you can anticipate them and stop a new starter getting frustrated. Helping them to keep track so they don't miss out on bonuses and free catalogs and free delivery and so on. And getting them to their first meeting, because that will really help a lot. And as I said, have a bit of a checklist. If you don't, that's fine. That's not the end of the world. It's up to you how you keep track of how you work with your team members. But that's what I do. Okay, so as I said at the beginning, what time are we now? Oh, 2 minutes to 8:30. I was aiming for about half an hour, which is pretty good. That was number 5, which was supporting your new team members. Next week we move into 6, 7, and 8 are kind of the end of the cycle, but actually they could equally be the beginning, because these are all about your personal skills, your personal development, your setting your goals and your attitude, and how important all of these things are. And in fact, if you did these before you even started, then you'd have a brilliant start to the business. But as I said, these are all recorded. I'm just going to stop the recording of tonight's video,